My name is Sarah Martinez. I'm 59 years old. When my daughter told me I wasn't welcome for Christmas at her home, I smiled, got into my car, and drove home. 3 days later, I had 20 missed calls from her. Before I tell you what happened next, please like this video, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. I want to know where all the real mothers are tonight. Because tonight, I need you to hear this. I need you to understand what it feels like to give everything you have to someone, only to be told you're not good enough to stand in their living room on Christmas morning. You know, they tell you when you become a mother that it's the most beautiful thing in the world. They tell you about the joy, the love, the fulfillment. What they don't tell you is that sometimes, the person you love most in this world can break your heart in ways you never imagined possible. They don't tell you that the child you carried, the child you sacrificed everything for, can one day look you in the eyes and make you feel like you're nothing. Let me take you back. Let me tell you who I was before that Christmas morning destroyed me. I'm a self-made businesswoman. I didn't inherit wealth. I didn't marry into it initially. I built everything from the ground up with my bare hands and my husband's support. We started with nothing, absolutely nothing. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment where the heat barely worked in winter. I remember wearing 3 sweaters to bed, holding my husband close just to stay warm. We ate rice and beans most nights because that's all we could afford. But we had dreams. God, we had such big dreams. My husband, Martinez, was the love of my life. We met when I was 23, working 2 jobs just to pay rent. He was working construction during the day and going to night school. We were both exhausted all the time, but we were happy. We were building something together. Within 5 years, we had scraped together enough money to start a small import business. It was just the 2 of us at first, working out of our garage, making calls, driving all over the state to meet clients. I remember the day Emily was born. I was 31 years old, and I had just closed the biggest deal of my career. I was in labor, timing my contractions between phone calls because I couldn't let that client go. Martinez kept telling me to hang up, to focus on the baby, but I knew that deal would change our lives. And it did. That contract became the foundation of everything we built. Emily. My daughter. My only child. When I held her for the first time, I made her a promise. I whispered it into her tiny ear while Martinez slept in the chair next to my hospital bed. I promised her that she would never know the kind of struggle I knew. She would never wear 3 sweaters to bed. She would never wonder if there would be enough food. She would have every opportunity, every advantage, everything I never had. And I kept that promise. God help me, I kept every single word of it. While other mothers were taking their daughters to the park, I was in meetings. While other mothers were baking cookies for school events, I was on planes, closing deals, building an empire. Not for me. For her. Every single dollar I made, every single hour I worked, it was all for Emily. Martinez and I, we built a multimillion-dollar company. We employed hundreds of people. We gave back to our community. But the center of everything, the reason for all of it, was our daughter. Emily went to the best private schools. She had tutors for every subject. Piano lessons, ballet, horseback riding, tennis, whatever she wanted, she got. When her friends got cars for their 16th birthdays, Emily got a brand new Mercedes. Not because we wanted to spoil her, but because we wanted her to know she was valued. We wanted her to feel secure, to feel loved. She got into Yale. My daughter got into Yale. Do you know what that meant to me? A woman who barely finished community college because I had to work full-time, watching my daughter get accepted to an Ivy League school? I cried for 3 days straight. Martinez and I, we held each other and we cried because we had done it. We had given our daughter the life we dreamed of. I paid every penny of her tuition. $280,000 over 4 years. Every meal plan, every textbook, every spring break trip to Europe with her friends. I didn't blink. I didn't hesitate. That's what mothers do. That's what I thought love looked like. She met Gregory in her senior year. Gregory Whitmore III. The name alone should have told me everything I needed to know, but I was too happy for her to see it. He came from old money. His family had wealth that went back generations. They owned real estate, investment firms, country club memberships that cost more than most people's houses. And my daughter, my beautiful Emily, fell in love with him. I remember the first time she brought him home. He was polite, charming, and well-dressed. He said all the right things. "Mrs. Martinez, your home is lovely. Mr. Martinez, I've heard so much about your business success." But there was something in his eyes when he looked around our house. Something that made my skin crawl. It was subtle, so subtle that I told myself I was imagining it. But I wasn't. It was judgment. It was condescension. It was him calculating our worth and finding us just barely acceptable. Martinez saw it too. After they left that night, he said to me, "Sarah, I don't like him." I asked why. He couldn't articulate it, just said something felt off. But Emily was glowing. Emily was so happy. So I ignored my husband's instincts. I ignored my own instincts. Because I wanted my daughter to be happy. They got engaged 6 months later. The ring cost more than my first house. Gregory's parents threw an engagement party at their country club, and that's when I first felt it, that sensation of being tolerated rather than welcomed. Gregory's mother, Patricia, looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her Prada shoe. She asked me what I did, and when I told her I owned a business, she smiled this tight little smile and said, "How industrious." Like I was a peasant who had learned to read. I swallowed it. I swallowed every condescending comment, every dismissive look, every moment where I felt like I didn't belong. Because this was my daughter's new family, and I would not embarrass her. I would not make waves. I would be gracious, and kind, and try to fit into their world. The wedding. Oh God, the wedding. Emily wanted everything. She wanted a venue that cost $40,000 just for the space. She wanted a designer dress that cost $30,000. She wanted the destination bachelorette party in Tuscany, the elaborate flowers, the 12-piece orchestra, the champagne that cost $300 a bottle. The Whitmores made it very clear that they would handle their portion of the costs. Which apparently meant the rehearsal dinner. Everything else? That was on Martinez and me. We paid for almost everything. $380,000 for one day. One single day. Do you know how many people I could have helped with that money? How many scholarships could I have funded? But it was my daughter's wedding. My only daughter. So I wrote the checks, and I smiled, and I told her she looked like a princess. At the reception, I barely saw her. She was busy taking photos with Gregory's family, making rounds to their friends, laughing at their jokes. When I finally got a moment with her, when I finally got to hold my daughter and tell her how beautiful she looked, Patricia interrupted. Actually interrupted. She said, "Emily darling, the Hendersons are leaving, you must say goodbye." And Emily went. She kissed my cheek and went. Martinez held my hand under the table. He squeezed it so hard it hurt. He knew what I was feeling. He always knew. A year later, Emily and Gregory bought their first house. Well, they called it buying. What really happened was we gave them $500,000 for the down payment, and the Whitmores covered the rest. It was a beautiful house in the best neighborhood, with the kind of address that opened doors in this city. Emily called me crying with happiness. She said, "Mom, thank you, I can't believe this is my life." And in that moment, every penny felt worth it. Martinez got sick 2 years after the wedding. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors gave him 6 months. He lasted 8, and every single day of those 8 months was agony. For him. For me. For Emily, too, I thought. But here's what I learned about my daughter during those 8 months: she was busy. She had charity galas to attend. She had tennis lessons. She had lunch dates with Patricia and the other country club wives. She visited her father maybe once a week, usually for less than an hour. She'd sit by his bed, hold his hand, and then her phone would buzz and she'd have to go. Always somewhere she had to be. Someone she had to meet. I was with him every single day. Every day and every night. I watched the strongest man I ever knew waste away to nothing. I held his hand through every treatment, every bout of sickness, every moment of pain. And when he died, when he took his last breath, I was there. Emily was at a fundraiser luncheon. She said she didn't know it would be that day. She said she thought she had more time. She cried at the funeral. She gave a beautiful eulogy about what a wonderful father he was. Everyone said she was so poised, so articulate. And I looked at her standing at that podium, and I barely recognized her. They will read. That's when everything crystallized for me. Martinez and I had built everything together, and he left it all to me. The business, the properties, the investments, and the family trust. $50 million in a trust, meant eventually for Emily, but under my complete control until I decided otherwise. Martinez's lawyer explained it all very carefully. Emily would inherit when I passed, or when I decided she was ready, whichever came first. Emily smiled and hugged me and told me she wasn't worried about money, that she just wanted to honor her father's memory. Gregory smiled too, but I saw it. I saw the calculation in his eyes. $50 million. Just waiting. Over the next few years, I watched my daughter change. Or maybe she didn't change. Maybe I just finally saw her clearly. She and Gregory settled into their life of luxury and status. They joined the right clubs, attended the right parties, and knew the right people. Emily started dressing like Patricia, talking like Patricia, even laughing like Patricia. That high, tinkling laugh that sounded like broken glass. She'd call me once a week, maybe. Usually when she needed something. A donation to her charity event. A reference for Gregory's business associates. Money for a renovation. I gave it all. Every time. Because she was my daughter, and you don't stop being a mother just because your heart is breaking. I'd invite her to lunch, and she'd cancel. I'd suggest dinner, and she'd be busy. But somehow, she always had time for Patricia. I'd see photos on social media, Emily and Patricia at the opera. Emily and Patricia at some gala. Emily and Patricia playing tennis at the club. And I would sit in the house I built, in the silence Martinez left behind, and I would wonder where I went wrong. Last Christmas, I didn't see her at all. She and Gregory went to the Whitmore's vacation home in Aspen. It's become a tradition, Mom, she said. You understand, right? I said yes. I said of course. I spent Christmas alone, looking at old photos of Emily as a little girl, when she still looked at me like I hung the moon. This year, I thought it would be different. Emily called me in early December. She said they were hosting Christmas at their house this year. A small, intimate gathering. She talked about the decorations she was planning, the menu, how excited she was. And then she said, I'll send you the details, Mom. I waited for those details. Days passed. A week. 2 weeks. Finally, I called her. Emily, honey, what time should I come on Christmas? There was a pause. A long pause. Then she said, "Oh, Mom, didn't I tell you? This year it's just going to be immediate family. Gregory's parents, his brother, us. Very small. Immediate family. I am her immediate family. I am her only living parent. I carried her in my body for 9 months. I am her blood, her mother, the person who gave her everything she has. And I am not an immediate family." I should have said something then. I should have asked her what she meant. But I didn't. I just said, "Oh, okay, sweetheart. Well, have a wonderful time." And I hung up. And I sat in my kitchen, the kitchen where I used to make her breakfast before school, and I cried until I couldn't breathe. But then something happened. Something inside me hardened. I wiped my face, and I thought, no. No. I am not going to sit home alone another Christmas while my daughter pretends I don't exist. I am going to show up. I am going to show up with a gift and a smile, and I am going to make her tell me to my face that I'm not wanted. So that's what I did. Christmas morning, I woke up early. I dressed carefully, a beautiful red cashmere sweater, my good jewelry, the pearls Martinez gave me for our 20th anniversary. I wrapped the gift I had bought for Emily months ago, a vintage photograph album I had been filling with pictures of her childhood, her father, and our family history. Hours of work. Hours of memories. The drive to her house took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of my heart pounding, my hands shaking on the wheel. I kept telling myself I was being silly. Of course I was welcome. She's my daughter. There was just a miscommunication. Her neighborhood looked like a Christmas movie. Every house is decorated perfectly, lights twinkling, snow falling gently. I parked on the street because their circular driveway was full. I recognized Patricia's Mercedes, Gregory's father's Bentley. There were other cars too. So much for being small and intimate. I walked up to the front door, the gift tucked under my arm, and I could hear them inside. Laughter. Music. The sounds of a party. I rang the doorbell, and I waited. Gregory answered. His face when he saw me, I will never forget it. Shock. Then I panic. Then something like anger. "Sarah," he said. Just my name. Not Mrs. Martinez anymore, apparently. Just Sarah. He didn't open the door wider. He stood in the doorway, blocking my view inside. "Merry Christmas, Gregory," I said. "I brought something for Emily." He looked back over his shoulder, then back at me. Sarah, this isn't really a good time." "I won't stay long," I said. "I just want to give Emily her gift and wish everyone a Merry Christmas." That's when Emily appeared behind him. My daughter. My beautiful daughter, wearing a cream-colored designer dress that probably cost more than most people make in a month. Her hair was styled perfectly. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a stranger. "Mom," she said. Not warmly. Not with any joy at seeing me. With embarrassment. With irritation. "Mom, what are you doing here?" What was I doing there? What was I doing at my daughter's house on Christmas morning? "I came to see you," I said. "I brought you something." She glanced back into the house. I could see people in the background. Patricia, definitely Patricia, watching us. Emily looked back at me, and I saw it in her eyes before she said the words. I saw the calculation. I saw her choosing them over me. "Mom, you weren't invited. This is a private gathering for families." Family. There's that word again. I wasn't family. I, who paid for her entire existence, was not family. These people, these Whitmores who looked down on me from day one, they were family. But not me. I should have screamed. I should have thrown that gift at her feet. I should have demanded to know how she could do this to me. But I didn't. Because all my life, I've had to be strong. All my life, I've had to swallow my pain and keep moving forward. So that's what I did. I smiled. I actually smiled at her. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart," I said. And I turned around, and I walked back to my car, and I got in, and I drove away. Behind me, I heard the door close. She didn't call after me. She didn't chase me down. She closed the door and went back to her party with her real family. I don't remember the drive home. I don't remember parking. I don't remember walking into my house. But I remember sitting on my couch, still wearing my coat, still holding that wrapped gift, and feeling something break inside me that I don't think will ever be fixed. The memories came flooding in. I couldn't stop them. Every sacrifice. Every choice I made for her. The business trips I took when I wanted to stay home with her because I needed to make money for her future. The school events I missed because I was working to pay for her private education. The nights I fell asleep at my desk because I was building something for her. I remember her first day of kindergarten. She cried and clung to my leg, and I cried in my car for an hour after I dropped her off. I remember teaching her to ride a bike, running behind her holding the seat, my back aching but not letting go until she was ready. I remember staying up all night with her when she had the flu, holding her hair back while she was sick, and washing her face with a cool cloth. I remember her high school graduation. She was valedictorian. She gave a speech about hard work and determination and never giving up on your dreams. She thanked her teachers. She thanked her friends. She thanked my parents in one brief sentence before moving on. But I was so proud. I was so proud I felt like I would burst. I remember helping her pack for college. She was so excited, so ready to start her life. I helped her fold clothes and organize her books, and I tried not to cry because my baby was leaving. When I finally got in my car to drive home, she was already on her phone, already moving on to the next thing. But I told myself that was good. That meant I had raised her to be independent. Every birthday party I threw. Every science project I stayed up helping with. Every heartbreak I comforted her through. Every achievement I celebrated. Every moment, every single moment of her life, I was there. I was present. I was her mother. And somehow, it still wasn't enough. Somehow, I still ended up standing on her doorstep on Christmas morning, being told I wasn't family. I looked around my house. The house Martinez and I bought when Emily was 10. The house we filled with memories and love. It felt like a mausoleum. Every room was a ghost of what we used to be. Emily's school photos on the wall, her childhood artwork still hanging in the hallway. Her bedroom, exactly as she left it, because I couldn't bring myself to change it. I walked into Martinez's study. I hadn't touched it since he died. His books were still on the shelves, his reading glasses still on the desk. I sat in his chair, and I broke down. I cried like I hadn't cried since his funeral. Great, heaving sobs that came from somewhere so deep inside me I didn't know it existed. "Martinez," I whispered to the empty room. "Martinez, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I did wrong. I gave her everything. Everything we built, it was all for her. And it still wasn't enough." I thought about his will. The $50 million in the trust. His life insurance. The business shares. The real estate portfolio. Everything carefully structured, everything meant to secure Emily's future. I pulled out the binder from the safe in his study. The legal documents, the trust papers, all of it carefully organized and labeled. Martinez had been so careful about this. He knew money could corrupt. He knew that having too much too soon could ruin a person. That's why he put everything in my control. He trusted me to know when Emily was ready. He trusted me to make the right decision. I read through the documents. Every page is another reminder of my husband's wisdom, his foresight, his love for our daughter. There were provisions for education, for housing, for healthcare. There were stipulations about responsible use, about giving back to the community. Martinez had thought of everything. Except this. He never thought that our daughter would turn into someone who would shut me out. He never imagined that the little girl he adored would grow up to be ashamed of where she came from. I sat there until the sun went down. Until the house was dark and cold. And then I made myself get up. I made myself eat something, though I don't remember what. I made myself go through the motions of living, because that's what I do. I survived. That night, the phone rang. Gregory. My son-in-law was calling me. I almost didn't answer. But I did. Sarah, he said, and his voice was different than earlier. Harder. More condescending. Listen, about today. Emily's really upset. She thinks you're upset, and it's putting a damper on the holiday. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The thing is, he continued, you need to understand that my parents have certain expectations. Certain standards for these gatherings. It's nothing personal, but they prefer to keep things exclusive. You understand. Standards. Expectations. Exclusive. These words, coming from a man whose education I helped pay for when I gave Emily money that she loaned to him for his business venture. This man, who had never worked a real day in his life, who lived off his trust fund and his father's connections, was telling me about standards. Don't take it personally, Sarah, he said, and I could hear the smugness in his voice. My parents just prefer certain things, standards. I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't tell him what I thought of his standards. I just hung up. And I sat there in the darkness, and I felt something change inside me. The pain was still there. The heartbreak was still there. But underneath it, something else was growing. Something hard and cold and final. I looked at the framed photo on the side table. Martinez and me on our wedding day. We were so young, so hopeful, so in love. I picked it up and I said out loud, it's time I remind them what real standards are. The next morning, I woke up with clarity. The pain was still there, burning in my chest like a living thing. But I knew what I had to do. I called my lawyer, Michael Rodriguez. He had handled Martinez's estate, our business dealings, everything. He knew me. He knew Emily. Michael, I said when he answered. I need to make some changes to the trust. There was a pause. Sarah, are you sure? Maybe you should wait a few days, think about. I've thought about it, I said, and my voice was steady. Calm. I need to do this today. He agreed to meet me that afternoon. I spent the morning getting ready, going through all the documents, making notes. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't revenge. This was clarity. In Michael's office, he laid out all the papers. The trust documents, the will, the estate plan. $50 million, sitting there on paper. Emily's future. Or what was supposed to be her future. Walk me through the options, I said. He did. I could revoke the trust. I could change the beneficiary. I could add conditions. I could do whatever I wanted, it was my money, my decision. Martinez had made sure of that. What do you want to do, Sarah? Michael asked gently. I want to redirect the trust, I said. All of it. I want to establish the Roberto Martinez Foundation. Scholarships for first-generation college students. Housing assistance for low-income families. Small business grants for entrepreneurs who can't get traditional loans. Community centers. Youth programs. Everything Martinez and I believed in. Michael looked at me for a long moment. All 50 million? All of it, I said. Effective immediately. Sarah, this is your daughter's inheritance. Are you absolutely certain? Was I certain? Was I certain that I wanted to take away $50 million from my only child? The child I raised, the child I loved more than my own life? Yes. Yes, I was certain. Because Emily had already made her choice. She had chosen their world over mine. She had chosen their standards over her own mother. And I would not reward that. I would not enable that. I would not allow my husband's legacy to go to someone who would use it to further distance herself from where she came from. I'm certain, I said. Draw up the papers. He did. It took hours. Page after page of legal documents, redirecting everything. The scholarships would prioritize students from working-class backgrounds. The housing assistance would focus on families like Martinez and I used to be. The small business grants would help people who had nothing but dreams and determination. Emily's name appeared nowhere. She would inherit the house, my personal effects, a modest sum from my personal accounts. Enough to be comfortable, but not enough to maintain her current lifestyle. Not enough to keep up with the Whitmores. I signed every page. My hand was steady. My mind was clear. And with every signature, I felt something like peace settling over me. Are you going to tell her? Michael asked as I stood to leave. Not yet, I said. Let her call me first. For 3 days, there was silence. 3 days where my phone didn't ring. 3 days where my daughter didn't check on me, didn't apologize, didn't acknowledge what had happened. 3 days where I went through my routine, work, meals, sleep, and felt like I was walking through fog. On the 3rd day, my phone started ringing. Emily's name, flashing on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Voicemail. Again. Again. 20 missed calls by the end of the day. The voicemail started out apologetic. Mom, please call me back. I'm sorry about Christmas. It was a misunderstanding. Please, can we talk? Then they got more urgent. Mom, seriously, you're worrying me. Just let me know you're okay. Call me back. Then they got desperate. Mom, please. We didn't mean it like that. Gregory's parents were being difficult. I should have stood up for you. I know that now. Please call me back. I listened to every voicemail. I heard the progression from mild concern to panic. And I felt nothing. Or maybe I felt everything, but it was buried so deep under the betrayal that I couldn't access it anymore. I sat in my living room, sipping tea, watching the snow fall outside the window. The same snow that had been falling on Christmas morning when I stood on her doorstep. Everything looked peaceful. Clean. New. On the 4th day, she showed up. I heard her car in the driveway, heard her footsteps on the porch, and heard the doorbell ring. I didn't rush to answer. I finished my tea. I set down the cup. And then I walked to the door. When I opened it, Emily looked terrible. Her eyes were red from crying, her hair was messy, her expensive clothes were rumpled. She looked young, suddenly. She looked like the little girl I used to comfort after nightmares. Mom, she said, and her voice broke. Mom, please. I'm so sorry. I stepped aside and let her in. We sat in the living room, the same living room where she used to do homework at the coffee table, where she used to watch TV curled up next to me, where we used to be a family. I didn't mean for it to happen like that, she started, words tumbling out. Patricia, she made this list of who was invited, and she was so insistent about keeping it small, and Gregory kept saying we had to respect his parents' wishes, and I just I just went along with it. I didn't think about how it would make you feel. I didn't think about how wrong it was. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I let her talk herself out. It wasn't about you, Mom. You have to believe that. It wasn't personal. It was about appearances. Patricia has these ideas about how things should look, and Gregory's family is so important to him, and I just wanted everyone to be happy. I thought you would understand. I thought you'd be okay. Appearances. There was that word again. Not about me, but about how things looked. About status. About fitting in with people who would never accept us no matter what we did. Emily, I said quietly. Do you remember when you were 7 years old and you wanted ballet lessons? She looked confused by the change in subject. What? Yes, I remember. Do you remember that I was working 80-hour weeks at the time? That your father and I were trying to land a major contract that could make or break our company? Do you remember that I left meetings early every Tuesday and Thursday to take you to ballet? Mom, I don't see what. Do you remember when you were 16 and you wanted to go to Europe with your friends for the summer? Do you remember that I hadn't taken a vacation in 5 years, but I paid for your trip? $4,000 for you to spend 6 weeks backpacking through Europe? Mom. Do you remember your college graduation? When you gave that speech about hard work and determination? Do you remember what you said about family? She was crying now. I thanked you. I thanked both of you. One sentence, Emily. You gave your parents one sentence in a 15-minute speech. But you spent 5 minutes talking about your sorority sisters. 10 minutes talking about your professors and your academic journey. One sentence for the people who paid for every bit of it. That's not fair, Mom. You're taking that out of context. Context, I repeated. Let me give you some context. When your father was dying, you visited him once a week for less than an hour. When he took his last breath, you were at a fundraiser lunch. You weren't there because you didn't think he'd die that day. But I was there, Emily. I was there every single day, watching him fade away, and I did it alone. I didn't know, she sobbed. I didn't know it would be that day. You didn't know because you didn't ask. You didn't know because you were too busy with your new life, your new family, your new standards. And I forgave you for that. I forgave you because grief is complicated and because you were young and because I told myself you were processing in your own way. I stood up and walked to the desk. I picked up the folder Michael had given me. The new trust documents. I brought it back and set it on the coffee table between us. What's this? Emily asked, wiping her eyes. Open it. She did. I watched her face as she read. I watched the confusion turn to shock and turn to horror. She looked up at me, the papers shaking in her hands. Mom, what is this? The Roberto Martinez Foundation? What does this mean? It means that the $50 million your father left in trust for you is no longer yours, I said calmly. It's being used to create scholarships, housing assistance, and community programs in your father's name. You can't do that, she whispered. That's my inheritance. Dad left that for me. No, I said, and my voice was hard now. Your father left that money in my care, to distribute when and how I saw fit. And I've decided that it's better used helping people who actually need it. People who understand the value of hard work. People who haven't forgotten where they came from. You're punishing me, she said. You're punishing me for one mistake. One mistake? I stood up, and I felt all the anger, all the pain, all the years of swallowed resentment rising up in me like a wave. One mistake? Emily, you have been slowly cutting me out of your life for years. Every cancelled lunch, every missed call, every time you chose them over me. Every time you looked embarrassed to introduce me to your country club friends. Every time you forgot to invite me to something. Every time you made me feel like I wasn't good enough for your new life. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you invited me to your house? Not for a party, not for an event, just for dinner. Just the two of us. When was the last time you called me just to talk, not because you needed something? When was the last time you acted like I was your mother and not some obligation you had to fulfill? She couldn't answer. She sat there crying, and she couldn't give me a single example. You forgot that respect can't be bought, Emily. And love isn't a photo op. You wanted to fit into their world so badly that you erased where you came from. You wanted their approval so desperately that you rejected your own mother on Christmas morning. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'll fix it. I'll make it right. Just please, please don't do this. Fix what, exactly? Make what right? Will you uninvite Patricia from your next gathering and invite me instead? Will you tell the Whitmores that they need to respect your mother? Will you choose me over them? She didn't answer. Because we both knew she wouldn't. She would apologize, she would cry, she would say all the right things. And then she would go back to her life, and nothing would change. I would still be the embarrassing secret, the working-class mother who didn't quite fit into her polished world. You're still my daughter, I said, and my voice softened despite myself. I will always love you. But this money, this foundation, this is about honoring your father's memory the right way. This is about helping people who remind me of us, of who Martinez and I were before we built everything. People who are struggling and working and dreaming. People who deserve a chance. What about me? She asked, and she sounded like a child. Don't I deserve a chance? You've had every chance, Emily. Every advantage, every opportunity, everything you could possibly want. And you used it to become someone who rejects her own mother. So no, you don't get this money. You don't get to use your father's legacy to maintain a lifestyle built on looking down on people like us. She looked at the papers again, and I saw something shift in her face. The tears stopped. Her jaw set. And I saw it, the Whitmore in her. The coldness, the calculation. You'll regret this, she said quietly. Will I? Will I regret using my money to help people instead of watching my daughter wasted on country club dues and designer clothes? She stood up, dropping the papers on the coffee table. I can fight this. I can get lawyers. You can try, I said. Michael Rodriguez is the best estate lawyer in this state, and every document is airtight. Your father made sure I had complete control. But go ahead, waste your money on lawyers if that makes you feel better. Drag this through the courts. Make it public. Let everyone see exactly what kind of person you've become. She stared at me, and for a moment I saw genuine hatred in her eyes. My daughter. My baby girl. Looking at me like I was her enemy. I came here to apologize, she said coldly. I came here to make things right. But you've already made up your mind, haven't you? You've already decided to punish me. This isn't punishment, Emily. This is the consequence. There's a difference. No, there isn't. You're taking away my inheritance because I hurt your feelings. That's exactly what this is. I'm redirecting money that was meant to be used responsibly into causes that will actually make a difference. Your father would be proud of what I'm doing. He built this wealth to help people, not to fund a lifestyle of exclusivity and snobbery. Don't you dare speak for my father, she snapped. Don't you dare act like you know what he would have wanted. I was married to him for 33 years. I knew him better than anyone. And I know he would be heartbroken to see what you've become. That hit her. I saw it land. Her face crumpled for a moment, and I almost took it back. Almost reached for her. Almost said we could work this out. But then she straightened up, and the mask was back. The Whitmore mask. Cool, composed, untouchable. Fine, she said. If this is what you want, fine. But don't expect me to come crawling back. Don't expect me to keep trying when you've made it clear that I'm not worth your forgiveness. I never said you weren't worth my forgiveness, Emily. But forgiveness doesn't mean erasing consequences. It doesn't mean pretending this didn't happen. You made a choice on Christmas morning. You chose their standards over your own mother. And I'm making a choice now too. She walked to the door, then stopped. Without turning around, she said, "You know what the worst part is? I actually believed you when you said you did everything for me. I believed that all those hours you worked, all those times you weren't there, it was all for my benefit. But it wasn't, was it? It was for you. To prove something. To build something with your name on it. I was just an excuse." Those words felt like a knife in my chest. Because there was a grain of truth in them, wasn't there? Had I been so focused on building a legacy, on providing for her future, that I missed her present? Had I been so determined to give her everything I didn't have that I failed to give her what she actually needed? But no. No. I was there for every important moment. I made sacrifices. Real sacrifices. I gave up sleep, health, time with my husband, time for myself. All for her. And she was twisting it, rewriting history to make herself the victim. "Get out," I said quietly. She did. She walked out, and she didn't look back. I heard her car start, heard it pull away. And then there was silence. I sat back down on the couch. I didn't cry. I was too empty to cry. I just sat there, looking at the papers scattered on the coffee table, and I wondered if this was what winning felt like. Because it felt a lot like losing. The days after that were strange. Quiet. Emily didn't call. She didn't text. It was like she had simply erased me from her life, the way I had been threatening to become for years anyway. Only now it was final. Now there was no pretending we had a relationship. I threw myself into the foundation work. Met with lawyers, with financial advisors, with community organizations. The Roberto Martinez Foundation started taking shape. We identified the first round of scholarship recipients, 20 students from low-income families, all first-generation college students. Kids who reminded me of Martinez and me when we were young. Kids with dreams bigger than their circumstances. We broke ground on a community center in the neighborhood where Martinez and I first lived, that one-bedroom apartment where we wore 3 sweaters to bed. It would have job training programs, after-school care for working parents, small business mentorship. Everything we wished we'd had when we were starting out. And with every meeting, every decision, every dollar I allocated, I thought about Emily. I thought about showing her what real standards looked like. Standards weren't about country clubs and designer clothes. Standards were about integrity. About remembering where you came from. About using your advantages to lift others up, not to distance yourself from them. But it didn't make me feel better. It didn't fill the hole in my chest where my daughter used to be. I heard things through mutual acquaintances. Emily and Gregory were fighting. Money was tight, apparently they had been living beyond their means, expecting that trust fund to kick in eventually. Gregory's business ventures weren't as successful as they pretended. They were leveraged to the hilt, appearances propped up by credit and expectations of inheritance. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt sick. Because that's still my daughter struggling. That's still my baby girl, even if she doesn't want to be anymore. Patricia called me once. Actually called my phone. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Mrs. Martinez," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I think we need to have a conversation about Emily. I have nothing to say to you, Patricia. Now, there's no need to be hostile. I'm calling as a concerned family member. Emily has been quite distressed, and I understand you've made some rash decisions regarding her inheritance. Those decisions are none of your business. Actually, they very much are my business when they affect my son's family. You're being vindictive, Mrs. Martinez. Surely you can see that. Emily made a small mistake, and you're punishing her with devastating financial consequences. A small mistake, I repeated. Tell me, Patricia, what would you do if your son told you that you weren't good enough to attend Christmas at his home? There was a pause. That's not what happened. Emily simply. That's exactly what happened. Your daughter-in-law, who I raised, who I sacrificed everything for, told me I wasn't family. She chose your standards over her own mother. So forgive me if I don't take parenting advice from the woman who taught her that blood means nothing compared to social status. How dare you? No, Patricia. How dare you? How dare you look down on me from day one? How dare you make my daughter feel like she had to choose between your approval and her own mother? How dare you call me now, pretending to care about Emily, when really you're just worried about your son's finances? This is ridiculous. I'm trying to be reasonable. I don't owe you reasonableness. I don't owe you anything. And neither does my money. Goodbye, Patricia. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt good. For the first time in years of swallowing their condescension, their judgment, their subtle cruelties, I had finally said what I wanted to say. The phone rang again immediately. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, threatening legal action, threatening to make sure I was never welcome in Emily's life again. As if I was welcome now. As if I had been welcome for years. Delete. Months passed. Winter turned to spring. The foundation work continued. We awarded our first scholarships at a ceremony in April. 20 students, standing on stage with their families, crying with joy and relief. Their parents, working-class people who reminded me so much of who Martinez and I used to be, thanked me with tears in their eyes. One mother hugged me and said, "You've changed my daughter's life. She's going to college. She's going to have opportunities one never dreamed of." And I thought about Emily at Yale, how I had given her those same opportunities. How she had used them to climb into a world where people like her mother weren't welcome. But these kids, these scholarship recipients, were different. They understood struggle. They understood sacrifice. They would remember where they came from. Or at least, I hoped they would. In May, I got a letter. Handwritten, in Emily's handwriting. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Mom, it started. I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll care. But I need to write it anyway. I've had a lot of time to think about what happened. About what I did. About what you did. And I'm still angry. I'm still hurt. But I also understand some things now that I didn't understand before. Gregory and I are separating. The money problems, the pressure, the constant fighting, it all became too much. But more than that, I realized I didn't recognize myself anymore. I looked in the mirror one day and saw Patricia looking back at me. And I hated it. I hated that I had become someone who could tell her own mother she wasn't welcome. I hated that I had let someone else's standards become more important than my own values. I hated that I had betrayed everything you and Dad taught me about loyalty and family. But I'm also angry at you, Mom. Because you didn't just take away money. You took away my father's legacy. You took away the security he wanted me to have. And yes, I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong. But your punishment feels so disproportionate to my crime. I've been going to therapy. My therapist says that both things can be true. I can be wrong for what I did, and you can be wrong for how you reacted. She says we both hurt each other, and we both have healing to do. I don't know if you want to hear from me. I don't know if there's any path back from this. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying. I'm trying to become someone I can be proud of. Someone Dad would be proud of. Someone you might forgive someday. I love you, Mom. I never stopped loving you, even when I made you feel like you weren't enough. You were always enough. You were always more than enough. I just lost sight of that. Emily. I read that letter 5 times. 10 times. I cried until I had no tears left. Because she was right, both things were true. She had hurt me in ways I didn't know I could be hurt. And I had reacted from a place of pain so deep that I had taken something irreversible. But I also thought about those scholarship kids. Those families. The community center we were building. The small business grants we were providing. Real people with real needs, being helped by money that would have otherwise funded country club memberships and designer handbags. Could both things be true? Could I have hurt my daughter and still done the right thing? I don't know. I'm not sure I'll ever know. I didn't respond to the letter right away. I needed time. I needed space. I needed to sit with my own feelings, my own guilt, my own righteousness. In June, the community center opened. It was beautiful, bright, welcoming, full of hope. We had after-school programs starting, job training, and small business mentorship. The Roberto Martinez Foundation emblem was on the wall, and I stood in front of it, touching my husband's name, wishing he could see this. He'd be proud of you. I turned around. Emily was standing in the doorway. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. Her clothes were nice but not designer. Her hair was simpler. She looked more like the daughter I remembered from years ago, before the Whitmores, before the country clubs. "What are you doing here?" I asked. I saw the announcement about the opening. I wanted to see it. To see what you did with Dad's money. We stood there, looking at each other across the bright, new space. Behind her, I could see families coming in, kids running to explore the playground, parents reading the flyers about programs and services. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. "It's exactly what Dad would have wanted." Emily. No, let me finish. I was wrong, Mom. About everything. I was wrong to shut you out. I was wrong to let Patricia dictate who was family. I was wrong to forget where I came from. And I was wrong to think that money was the same as love. She walked closer, and I could see she had been crying. But you were right. This is what Dad would have wanted. This is making a real difference. I walked past the scholarship wall, and I saw all those kids' names, and I realized, this is a better legacy than anything I would have done with that money. I didn't do it to hurt you, I said, and my voice cracked. I did it because I couldn't watch his life's work go to someone who had forgotten what it all meant. I know. I know that now. And I'm not asking you to change it. I'm not asking for the money back. I'm just asking if maybe, someday, there might be room for me in your life again. Not as an inheritor. Not as someone you owe anything to. Just like your daughter. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And I saw the little girl who used to hold my hand. The teenager who used to talk to me about her dreams. The young woman I had been so proud of. She was still in there, underneath all the Whitmore polish, underneath all the mistakes and hurt. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, I said honestly. What you did, Emily, it broke something in me. Standing on your doorstep, being told I wasn't family, I don't know if I'll ever get over that. I understand, she said. I'm not asking for forgiveness right now. I'm just asking for a chance. A chance to show you that I can be better. That I can be the daughter you deserve. Behind us, a little girl laughed, running through the community center with her mother chasing after her. It sounded like joy. It sounded like hope. Come to dinner next week, I said finally. Just the two of us. No Gregory, no Whitmores, no agendas. Just us, and we'll talk. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. She left, and I stood there in the community center, surrounded by the legacy Martinez and I had built, not in money, but in impact. Not an inheritance, but an opportunity. Was I right to do what I did? I still don't know. I took away my daughter's financial security to build something that would help hundreds of people. I chose principle over blood. I chose justice over forgiveness. But I also broke my daughter's heart the way she broke mine. I also created a wound that might never fully heal. I also made a choice that can never be undone. The dinner next week will be awkward. There will be tears and difficult conversations and maybe more hurt before any healing can happen. Or maybe it won't happen at all. Maybe the damage is too deep. Maybe some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. But I'll try. Because she's still my daughter. Because underneath all the pain and anger, I still love her. Because Martinez would want me to try. I learned something through all of this, something I never wanted to learn. You can sacrifice everything for your child and still have them reject you. Was it the right choice? Ask me in 10 years. Ask me when those scholarship kids graduate and start careers and families of their own. Ask me when the community center has served thousands of families. Ask me when my daughter either comes back to me as someone I can respect, or walks away forever as someone I can't. This Christmas, I'll be at the community center. We're hosting a dinner for families who can't afford their own celebration. There will be kids opening gifts, parents sharing meals, the kind of joy that comes from genuine community rather than exclusive gatherings. Emily might be there. She asked if she could help, if she could volunteer. I said yes, though I don't know if she'll actually show up. Maybe she will. Maybe she's finally beginning to understand what Christmas should really be about. Or maybe I'll be alone again, watching other people's families, wondering if I made the right choice when I chose principle over my daughter. But you know what? I'll be at peace either way. Because I finally gave myself something I hadn't had in years, self-respect. I finally drew a line and said, this far and no further. I finally stopped accepting crumbs of affection from someone who should have been giving me the whole loaf. This Christmas, I finally gave myself peace. And that is worth more than $50 million. That is worth more than anything. So to every mother watching this who has felt that sting of rejection from the child they sacrificed everything for, you are not alone. To every parent who has been told they're not good enough, not polished enough, not sophisticated enough for their own child's life, I see you. You don't owe anyone your dignity. Not even your children. Especially not your children, if they've forgotten what you gave them. Stand up. Draw your lines. Make your choices. And if those choices break your heart while you make them, at least you'll know you didn't break your own spirit. My name is Sarah Martinez. I'm 59 years old. When my daughter told me I wasn't welcome for Christmas, I smiled, got into my car, and drove home. 3 days later, I changed her entire future. And I'd do it again.